Good morning, Monday morning at 9 o'clock. We're back again with another Monday 5 Live segment. And today it's all about 4 reasons to quit dairy for good. And this is a really relevant subject actually for me at the moment because I've actually just had a weekend away for my daughter's birthday. We took my daughter and some friends away for the weekend down to a little place that we stay at in Lake Taupo. And the weekend for me has been full of, let's say, foods that I would not normally eat. And I've recognized that some symptoms that I've started to experience just from the weekend are a result of having some of those foods that I wouldn't normally eat, and that includes dairy products. And I thought I really need to talk about this today. It's very, very relevant for everyone out there. And we've got to get the message out there that dairy is actually creating a lot of problems in the human body. And so today I want to talk about 4 reasons why you really should consider giving up dairy for good. Okay, so dairy products include things like milk, cheese, yogurt, cream, kefir, anything that comes from the milk of an animal. And this also includes goat's milk, so things like feta cheese and all that sort of thing. And it's one of those foods that we take all our clients off straight away. And this isn't always popular, particularly at the beginning when we explain, we're going to be taking you off dairy. And people say things like, oh, but I really love my cheese, or I really love my yogurt on my porridge in the morning. But generally, after a very short period of time, these people can see the difference that it's making to their health, and they recognize the reasons why they've had to come off that dairy. So just a bit of background about why I feel qualified to talk about this subject. I've got a lot of personal experience. I recognised that for me, dairy was a problem probably about 15 years ago, but it wasn't until 10 years ago that I actively took dairy products out of my diet. And the reason I did that was because I was getting really bad eczema. It was all over me. It started to appear on my face. And at that time, I started working with a naturopath, and we went through a whole lot of different testing, testing that doctors can't offer. The whole steroid medication thing, that's a whole other story. If you've read my first book, you will know all about what steroid medication did to me. But through that process, we recognised that dairy products were a real problem for me. And so I was able to take them out of my diet, among some other things as well. It wasn't just dairy. And my eczema started to heal. Now, I know that I'm very open about the fact that, I follow a plant-based diet 95% of the time. So that means that 5% of the time I give myself wriggle room where I can have a little bit of dairy here and there, or I have a little bit of meat here and there. It's no big deal, but it's something that I do very, very rarely. And getting back to what I was saying at the very beginning of this was that we've just been away for the weekend. We celebrated my daughter's birthday. And, as is the case when you're away from your normal routine, sometimes you don't have access to the foods that you would normally have. Maybe you're going for convenience because you're on the road and, you haven't got your normal food around you. And so this weekend, the first thing that's happened for me is that I have started to get a little bit of eczema inside my elbow, which is a very common place for people to get eczema. And I also became very asthmatic over the weekend. Now for me, eczema and asthma is something that I've had my entire life, but I know how to manage it now through my diet. And taking out dairy products has been a massive part of that. So this weekend, when I was having a little bit of dairy here and there, the first thing that happened was that my airways closed up. I needed my Ventolin inhaler a lot, and also I started to get a patch of eczema on my elbow. And that's my body telling me, it doesn't like dairy. Please don't put this stuff inside my body because it's not going to agree with me. And so I'm very tuned in now to what my body is telling me. And this is a big part of what I teach my clients when I coach them as well, is that the body is always talking to you. And when you're getting symptoms, your body's trying to tell you something. And for me, Dairy products give me symptoms in the form of eczema and asthma. It also makes my hay fever worse. So that is why I feel very confident in teaching people about the dangers of dairy products. I've been through it all myself. I've had a long history in dealing with this. I've got a lot of personal experience in this area. So let's talk about the 4 reasons why you should consider quitting dairy for good. And when I say for good, it's not like you can never ever have dairy products again, but you just have to be really, really careful about how often you're having them. So in our program, Steve and I take all our clients off dairy. Our clients start to see pretty impressive results quite quickly when that happens, and then from there they get to choose whether they reintroduce it or not. I've never worked with anyone who's reintroduced dairy products over the long term. They've realized that it doesn't work for them. Okay, number 1 is that it's highly inflammatory in the body. So dairy products, what they do is they create an inflammatory response in the body. And this is particularly important for people to know if they have pain. If you're living with pain, whether it's arthritis or gout, whether it's general aches and pains, whether it's muscular stiffness, or even if it's like a structural injury that you've had, like a back injury or a neck injury, dairy products actually exacerbate pain in the body because it creates inflammation. So I'll give you an example. This is an example I use quite often with my own mother. She's 77 years old, and for as long as I can remember, she's had arthritis in her hands. So her hands were starting to get, like the knuckles were getting a little bit disfigured, and she was having trouble with pain in the hands. And then also she started to get a really bad knee, and it was really, really affecting her in a bad way. And I said to her, Mum, you really need to come off dairy products. And she was quite reluctant to start with, because she liked her, her milky coffee in the morning. And anyway, about 2 years ago, she went off dairy. And now she has no more pain. She's got no more arthritis. She's got no problem in her knee. In fact, she can actually climb the mount and come back down without any problem. So that's an example of how taking dairy products out of her diet really, it basically annihilated all the pain in her body. So whenever I work with someone with pain, I say to them, look, dairy products are really inflammatory. You really need to get rid of them. And, often one of the first things they notice is that their pain has diminished. Okay. Also, actually, I'm working with a lady at the moment. She's in her 60s, and I've seen her twice. So she's done 2 weeks of the program. She's going into week 3. And after 1 week, she noticed a massive difference in the pain in her body. So she was riddled with aches and pain. She was riddled with arthritis. After 1 week, she said to me, I just cannot believe how much better I am feeling having taken dairy products out of my diet. Okay, so that's number 1, is it's very inflammatory. The second reason is that it creates mucus in the body. And for those of you who don't know what mucus is, it's actually a protective mechanism that the body creates to protect you. So what happens is that when you eat dairy products, because it's inflammatory, it's going to inflame your gut. And it's also going to affect the gut bacteria, the good gut bacteria. It's going to strip the gut of its good acids. And what happens is that when all the good acids are stripped from the gut, from, not just dairy, but other things in what we call the standard American diet, or the SAD, things like too much meat, alcohol, caffeine, sugar, stress hormones, all those things strip your gut of essential stomach acids. And what it does is that it replaces those stomach acids with these sort of bad acids, and then they start to travel up the esophagus. So if anyone out there has got reflux, this is what's happening. Reflux is a result of what's going on in your gut, where your gut has been stripped of all its good gut bacteria and stomach acids, and it's now producing bad acids which are coming up your esophagus. That's what's causing reflux. And to protect your body from those acids coming up your esophagus, because you can imagine what that's doing to the lining of your esophagus, your body produces mucus to protect the lining, because you've got all these bad acids coming up. So the body's producing the mucus to line the esophagus and protect it. So if you're someone who snores heavily, if you're someone who gets a lot of sinus infections or ear infections, perhaps you have to clear your throat a lot before you speak. Maybe you actually actively cough up mucus a lot. This is a sign that your body is overproducing mucus, and it's doing this because your body is inflamed, particularly your esophagus where your food travels down, and your body's telling you, actually, there's a lot of inflammation going on in here. I'm having to produce a lot of mucus to keep you safe. So if you're someone who struggles with congestion around the throat, the ears, the sinuses, you're coughing a lot, you're spitting up mucus, you're clearing your throat a lot, it's a sign that your body is producing too much mucus, and that the cause of that is likely to be very, very strongly linked to your dairy consumption, okay? So when you take dairy products out, those problems just go away. People with sinus infections notice that their sinuses are clearer. They're not getting the ear infections anymore. They're not having to spit up all that mucus anymore, and their snoring starts to improve as well. So that's number 2, is that it's mucus forming. Number 3 is that it's cancer causing. I know this is controversial, but there's so much evidence out there now that shows that casein, which is a protein found in cow's milk, is cancer causing. Now, there's a very well-respected doctor in America called Dr. T. Colin Campbell. He's written a pretty impressive book. It's called The China Study. If you're into, all the facts and the figures and the research, I recommend that you go and find that book and read it. It's pretty full on. I've summarized a lot of it in my book to make it easier to read. I've got a whole chapter. Chapter 3 is called Meaty Milky Madness. I know that's backwards on the screen. This chapter is all about what animal protein is doing to human health, and it is not good. So it's been proven that casein, which is a protein in cow's milk, actually contributes to the development of precancerous foci. Now, foci are tiny little cancerous cells that can only be seen by a microscope. So it's the very, very early stages of cancer development. And what's happening is that casein is creating a biochemical response in the body, which is elevating growth hormones and also creating a lot of acid in the body. So this is why we're getting the development of these foci, or little precancerous cells, from dairy products. So interestingly, what they found in their studies with what Dr. T. Colin Campbell and his team found when they went into China and did this massive study over thousands and thousands of Chinese people and the effect of animal protein on their health, is that when people had a high intake of casein from milk, like over 10% of their calories in the diet, when that came from milk products or dairy products, there was high foci development. Whereas when the population had a lower intake of casein, like under 10% of calories, foci development was a lot less. And so what they found was that that the intake of dietary proteins, particularly milk and casein from cow's milk, could actually turn on or turn off early foci development. Now, this was a pretty groundbreaking study. As I said, I really recommend that you go and, if you're into all that stuff, go and read about it, or read this, because this summarizes all that. So the other thing that Dr. Campbell found in his research is that casein is actually likely to be far more carcinogenic than other noxious chemicals such as herbicides, pesticides, because there's a sort of a misunderstanding that cancer is actually caused mostly by chemicals. And what Dr. Campbell found through his study in China was that actually it was more about casein and animal protein had more impact on the body when it came to cancer than other noxious chemicals, which was pretty amazing and pretty interesting. But the good news about that is that, cancer can actually, if you're in the first 2 stages of cancer, now there's 3 stages of cancer. If you're in the first 2 stages, nutrition can be incredibly powerful in actually reversing that cancer. So that's a good thing to know. Okay, the 4th reason is it feeds underlying viral activity in the body. Now, this is an area that we delve into a lot with our coaching. It's an area that's not explored by conventional medicine. Through my own health crisis, through our own research and study, we have realized that underlying viral and pathogenic and bacterial activity in the body have a lot to answer for when it comes to modern health conditions. So what happens is that everyone's got underlying viral activity in the body, stemming from the herpes virus. It's called the Epstein-Barr virus. It's part of the herpes family, and everyone's got different strains, and it's, it can be passed down through the bloodline from your parents. But there are certain foods that virus loves to thrive on, and dairy products is one of those foods. Okay, so what happens is that you eat dairy in the form of milk or cheese or yogurt or something like that, and the virus goes, woohoo, now I've got some food, and it starts thriving on that food. And from there, the virus replicates in the body. It also defecates in the body. It creates noxious type gases in the body. And that's where a lot of our symptoms from modern day health conditions are coming from. So if you're someone who gets pain, as I said, if you've got headaches and migraines, maybe you've got gut issues, maybe you've got autoimmune dysfunction, you have to think about what foods you're eating and whether the foods you're eating are feeding that viral activity. And I can tell you that dairy products is one of those foods. So when you remove that food from your diet, when you take out dairy products, that there's other foods as well, which I'm not going to go into today, but that's what we do in our coaching programs. When you remove dairy products, that virus can't thrive. It can't replicate and keep producing new cells. Okay, it ends up having to die off because there's nothing to feed it. And when that viral activity starts to die off, what happens? People's symptoms start to go away. Okay, so this is one of the big reasons that we take everyone off dairy products. So that's my 4 reasons today why I suggest that you quit dairy for good. I can't talk enough about the benefits that you will notice if you take dairy out of your diet. And people are really skeptical because, of course, we're being conditioned, especially in this country, where dairy products are a big source of our economy and income and things like that. We've been told that we need dairy for calcium and to prevent osteoporosis and all that sort of thing. Well, here's an interesting fact for you, is that New Zealand has one of the highest rates of dairy consumption in the world. And we also have one of the highest rates of osteoporosis in the world. So how does that work? Because we've been told that we need calcium to prevent osteoporosis. Well, we're actually eating a lot of calcium in the form of dairy, and we're ending up with osteoporosis. So there's something not quite right in that equation. So yes, 4 reasons to quit dairy. Just to recap, highly inflammatory in the body. It causes a lot of mucus in the body. It's cancer causing. And what was the last one? It feeds viral activity in the body. Those are the 4 reasons to consider taking dairy out of your diet. And I can guarantee you, if you do that, you will see some pretty awesome results with your health. So yeah, find me through any questions. If you've got any questions about dairy products, if you're unsure about how to go about it, that's what we're here for. As you know, I specialize in plant-based nutrition. On a plant-based diet, there's no dairy, among other things as well. So hope that was useful for you. I hope if there's anyone out there who's watching who is struggling with any condition and you don't know how to get on top of it, please take on board what I've said about dairy products and get in touch if you have any further questions or want to discuss that further. So that's it for today, everybody. Thank you, Debs. Thank you, Helen. I've seen people kind of tune in and out the whole time. Really appreciate you watching, and for those of you who are watching the replay as well. So yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day out there. I'm going to go and enjoy the sunshine. I'm going to put myself in my sunroom so I can do some work in there. Yeah, so go and have a great week, everyone, and we'll catch you same place, same time next week. Bye.